Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday of the Independence Week and a very exciting event this week. Our first panel focused on independent businesses with a social good purpose. So therefore, the panel is called Independent for Good. And joining us are wonderful guests, Collette, who is a founder and CEO of Open360, Candace from Untapped Potential, and Talal Predictive Healthcare. So super excited for great conversation. So I guess, Collette, my first question would be to you. What's it like to be running a business with social purpose in corporate-ish or at least professional environment?
Yeah, it's surreal. Because if you had told me I'd be doing this 5 years ago, I don't think I ever would have believed it. And our product is really has psychology baked in, but we've created some technology around it, which I don't have technology experience. So it's been really just an absolute process of going through and building over the last few years. And I'll tell you, I cannot imagine having done it without being mission driven and having just a much bigger purpose besides revenue.
Which is an amazing concept, right? Mission driven. And another guest of ours, Candace, really exemplifies mission driven. So Candace, please introduce yourself and tell us about what you do.
I'm Candace Freedenberg, founder of Untapped Potential. This is our 10th year, and we are advancing business, yet reigniting careers. And we really come from that social enterprise perspective of returning the economic value of women back to corporate America. Often women, those that have a gap for caregiving. And it truly is mission driven that these women shouldn't be sidelined for the remainder of their career. The only reason they had to opt out was because society doesn't support the dual role of caregiving and being a professional, and still operates in the industrial age as if it is everybody has a stay-at-home person doing those tasks for you. So we're trying to shift society, and only now are people starting to value or understand the value of caregiving. So it, again, similar to what Collette said, if we weren't mission driven, that these women, are degreed professionals, have institutional knowledge, can add value, and have even gained valuable assets, emotional intelligence, empathy during their caregiving years, that we can't keep them sidelined for the remainder of what will be a longer career than any generation before us.
Wow. Awesome. Thank you, Candace. And last but not least, a fellow techie, yay, Talal, Predictive.
Yes, Talal Ali Ahmad, the founder and CEO of Predictive Healthcare. We're about 3 years old company, and we're more on the healthcare side of the business. So we monitor post-op surgical incision to alert the doctor with early sign of infection. So we are connecting the patient to the doctor post-surgery, which is right now is like you go home and nothing happened for the next 10 days. So beside being driven, I should add, we have to be patient in this market today. You can be driven, but if you're not a patient person, you're going to lose your mind quickly.
So I have a question. My question for whoever wants to jump in, and we'll see how this goes if I want to jump in. Everybody jump in all at once. But how do you think about that balance between profit? Because obviously these are businesses, and you have to make money, and you have to pay people, et cetera, in the mission that you're doing. How do you balance that? How do you keep that in mind?
One point I'll make is we serve our demographic inherent to our model, and the demographic benefits along the way. And there are many staffing companies out there that make money, do this business. We're doing it with one demographic in mind, and we support them through their journey with that service. So it kind of is Yes, we need to be patient. I like that, Talal, because, we aren't churning things out like other staffing firms that are growing, because we're spending time educating, skilling up, and providing a network of support. So we provide more support structure. But if I looked back when we did our business case in 2015, other businesses are doing this, businesses are making money. We just want to be more welcoming to those that are in our target demographic.
Yeah, so we are in different fields. So in a tech, revenue is like a journey. So you don't get it from the first year. So what we have to take care of two things. One is the first customer, because those are like your anchor. You want to make sure they're happy, your advocate out there. At the same time, your people they're working with and you're working with you. So you want to also make sure they have a balance between work and life, because you want to get it burned out quickly, especially in the startup world. There's a lot of long hours, changes on the spot. I mean, yesterday, one of the engineers was up all night trying to fix something for one of the customers. So you have to make sure, okay, you can take the day off. I mean, it's okay. We're going to lose one day, but we need to have the balance for them.
Yeah. For us, I think it's about delivering value and just making sure that what we say we're going to do is actually what we're doing. And it's been kind of a struggle for me because I love what we do so much that I would just do it for free, so it's been a real struggle for me to really capitalize on that value so that we can in turn provide even more value. And that's kind of where I've placed it at this point, is as we're getting value and as we're building the business, we can then turn around and invest that back into the people that we serve.
So I'm going to pick up on something, Talal, that you said earlier, that revenue is a journey, because I feel like Eric and I are living that as well in our business. But one of the things I'm interested in hearing from you all is revenue is a journey in terms of like getting the revenue. But I also think, to Colette's point, there's almost like this psychological journey of like, how am I going to, I need to make revenue. I feel like I need to make revenue now, but sometimes making revenue now is not the right way to actually build the business. So I'm interested in like, how has that need to sort of get things started and sometimes maybe do some stuff, at lower cost or lower price than it's worth and whatever. How has that played into the journeys that you all have had?
I mean, you have to look at the adoption first before you think in revenue. Right. You have to look at the customer's going to start liking your product. They want to buy it. Then you have traction. Then you start thinking about revenue. If you think about revenue from day one, before you have the product ready or people saying, okay, I can use this, then you're going to end up like chasing revenue and forever, and you'll never make it. For us is customer adoption, make sure we have traction before we're thinking revenue. And revenue will come, eventually will come. It's just, you have to, again, if you have to look at metrics first before you can say, I want to make $5 million this year. Well, if you don't have the base for it, you're not going to make $1 a year. So.
Yeah, I think I come from two different worlds. It's kind of interesting because I've been in Talal's world of new technology, launching new businesses based on high-tech, laser material processing or things of that nature. And in that world, you have the business case with the 5 years projected. And if you sell this capital equipment or this new consumer device and, you understand the cost involved, you can predict that revenue, but it's a journey to get someone to invest in you so you can make the, plastic molds and all those things to make the product. And similar in Colette's world of, I've been in business process reengineering for IBM's top clients, and you still were building new businesses, selling IBM services to those clients and gaining that first customer blessing, the references, things of that nature. But in this more modern, I'd say, internet startup realm where you're offering services, a lot of it is, Talal said, is that customer discovery. So you are spending in that early years a lot of time pounding the pavement, talking to customers, and inquiry-based questions to get to what is going to be my go-to-market product, what is getting that customer to help you define, these are the points of pain that mean the most to me, this is how you can solve the problem. And we have a two-sided model, so we're serving our business clients and the stay-at-home moms, or educated, experienced professionals that with a gap, trying to see what is going to get them over the edge so they can come back to work. What are those solutions? So it's a good long journey of inquiry-based, asking questions before you get that solution out there that has a lot of buy-in.
I'm thinking about a book. I know Eric's read this book. I don't know if any of the rest of you read the book called "Fall in Love with the Problem, Not the Solution" by Uri. And this, as you're talking, that's what I'm thinking of, is this idea of like, you really have to understand the problem and not, sort of fall in love with your solution, this constant need to actually tweak and change, and this isn't quite the right product. So I'm interested to hear if any of you sort of how that idea has played into any of your journey.
I'll just say that from the title of the book, Fall in Love with the Problem, Not the Solution, when I first came to market and was pitching this, someone said, it sounds like you have a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. And they didn't see the problem. And we needed to make the problem more visible, that you don't realize that there's this human capital that's being sidelined and not used because they've delivered, raising our next generation. So really studying the problem first and falling in love with it and feeling like it is warranted, it is valuable, is definitely a necessary step.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, Candace, because when I started my first company before Jeff and I went into business together, I was trying to convince people. I had actually set it up as a public benefit corporation, and I was trying to convince like VCs and people who are might be interested in helping me grow the company. I had to actually convince them that it was worthwhile or whatever, and I have to admit that I never really got there on the public benefit. And then it started being a little more about, okay, well, how do we make this into a revenue generating bootstrapped kind of company? But I'm just kind of curious, like, and Talal, maybe yours and Collette, and actually, I don't know if any of you have reached out to VCs for funding. Talal, I assume that you have, but how does that play in? How do you convince the VCs that the mission is worthy when they're probably mostly focused on, we love that your mission is worthy if you make us money?
Yeah, the problem with VC is it depends on the weather. I mean, you talk to VCs today, you get nothing. I mean, you end up with 100 meetings, stay in touch, let us know when you do X. 3 years ago, when you talk to VCs, like, okay, we're going to send you the check. So it depends on what's going on in the market. But in general, VC is a cliche, but you have to create a FOMO. You have to say you're missing on something. Yeah, you're solving a problem, but you're missing on something big if you don't join me right now. And it's unfortunate. And that if you look at LinkedIn, and if you talk to any PR companies, anybody like that, you have to create a FOMO for VCs. They all use the same technology, the same cliche. You have to create a FOMO. Nobody tell you, okay, describe the problem for them. Let them be aware of the problem. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's just like they have to feel like they have to be in this. So talking to VC, it is tough, especially these days, even angel investors. What we're doing right now is just manage the cash flow, stay the course, and keep your finger crossed they're gonna come around and see what we're doing and they'll talk to us. Doesn't mean we're not talking to them. Anytime we have a meeting, we'll take it. Anytime we have an introduction, we'll take it. Just we plant the seed, and hopefully one day we can kind of use what we've started.
And Jeff, and Eric, I don't have experience with VCs. I've kind of intentionally tried to stay away from that for the moment. But when you talk about fall in love with the problem, it resonates with me in a different way, because there's just this idea, especially when you're pouring all of your energy into this thing that means so much to you, that you're going to get to a level where it's easier, where you're solving fewer problems. And the reality is, at each level, there's the same amount or more intensity. There's more, so it's just a matter of, I think, almost setting expectations that there is no plateau, that it is just constant problem solving as an entrepreneur.
So I want to build on something you said, Collette. And you said, I intentionally tried to stay away from VCs, right? Which is one of the models of staying independent. And in today's market, the beauty of that model is that you don't have to pay back to anybody when the market is really sideways, right? And we all know it. So I'd like to talk about that, being independent. And what's it like to be independent or largely independent for the three of you? So please talk to us about that.
Well,
I'll jump in there, Elena. Just I don't often associate independent with what we're doing, but I haven't taken advantage of venture capital funding. And one of the reasons why is we're trying to build the workplace and the work modes that we need to be the caregivers of people in our lives, yet still pursue our professional potential. So to have that shouldering that, paying someone back, and hitting those metrics and trying to put them in a year that is different than other companies' years. So we have a seasonal execution. We're hot and heavy in the fall, in the spring, and it's a little bit different. So re-educating, that would be difficult. So being independent so you can deliver on your promise of work-life balance. When we return our educated, experienced moms back to the workplace, they have a acclimation back to the workplace from part-time to full-time, so they can meet the catch-22 signing up for daycare and paying a year in advance and things that they have to do. And I think that changes the revenue associated with hours booked and things of that nature.
I want to ask on a different angle. At least the word on the street, if you will, if you listen to the press, is that Gen Z in particular and some of the younger generations really appreciate this whole mission-driven approach, and this whole that it's actually, in some ways, I don't know if it's more important than salary, but it's like as important as salary, and they want, are you seeing, do you feel that in your work? Are you seeing that, sort of the younger generations get it faster? I mean, maybe Collette, maybe this is something in your space.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I think what they appreciate is the lack of hypocrisy. So I think they appreciate the mission, but even more, I mean, especially in our space where we're dealing with performance management and some kind of organizational processes that are old and no longer functioning. And I kind of call it, people are going to hate this term, so I'll just live with it, but organizational gaslighting, basically, is that we all know that this process is not going to help your performance or help you improve. We know exactly what it's for, yet we're not saying it out loud. We're going through the process as if this is for you, and so I think the tolerance for that is really low. And so that's what I'm seeing that Gen Z is appreciating about what we're bringing to the table in businesses like ours, is just that we're telling the truth and we're trying to operate from there.
Very good point. I just want to highlight that similar to the Gen Zs being mission driven, stay-at-home moms, when they're going to go back to work, they're leaving something valuable, something they agreed to do for no money, and they're not going to pay someone else to do it or leave someone to do it so that they can make a widget at ABC company. They really want something that they can be proud of, that they can tell their children they're doing something important. So it's really a guided approach to find what is that thing that's going to have you leave this unpaid job that you're doing with your whole heart and that you can be proud of. So we have actually a day of return to work for women interested in purposeful industries. And it's the nonprofits, higher eds, startups, social enterprises, and women-owned businesses where they can feel like they are pivotal, valuable, not a cog in a wheel.
There's an interesting question here about like how so as my brain is sort of making the leap of, you know, all of you in at some point, I assume, have had other jobs where you worked for people where you weren't independent and made the leap to be independent. What drove that? And obviously there were some trade-offs there, but like what what sort of has led you to kind of follow this path? And do you ever I don't know. I know Candace and Collette have been in corporate environments. Talal, I'm guessing you probably were at some point, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But just interested to know, like, at some point you left that environment. Is there anything you miss about it, or is it like, wow, thank goodness I'm not doing that anymore?
I can answer that. It was a great experience and really helpful for the work that I'm doing now to solve problems that are happening within organizations. So I do miss the company, actually, you know, working with other people in the same space as other people more often. But I think what drove me to move, because Jeff, you know me, and Eric and Elena, you know me well enough, that I am not a high achiever. I am a high performer, but honestly, I could just be. I don't need a massive goal in my life. I don't need to be like driving towards something. So what caused me to leave corporate America and build this business is the pain that I was seeing people in with these overly structured, fake communication processes that were happening at work that were causing damage to trust, morale, motivation. And with the data that we have from Gartner and Gallup, and with my experience working with that for 20 years, I knew that there's a better way. You can really do better than that. And so it was honestly just the pain of seeing this problem unsolved that had me leaving and starting my own business.
Yeah, for me, a little bit different. So most of my career was a part of startup company, and I was an employee number 4 of the first company, and it grew the company to be 500 people. And I started the transition from like being involved in everything, and what Colette said, like now it's no chemistry between people, different department fighting over like recognition, and I said like it's not something I want to be in. I cannot do that. When I left, I start interviewing for corporate job, but deep inside me, it's like, I wish they say no. I wish they say no, so I can go other startup. I mean, I drove my wife crazy because I was like, why did you take the job? Like, no, I want something smaller. And now I cannot see myself working for a big corporate. I mean, I like the small team. I like to get involved. I'm not like overbearing, like I have to have my fingers everything, but it just give me access. Why enhance my knowledge by working in a small team and startup?
Definitely, I can share. While I was in corporate America, I had a unique experience when corporate had a downturn to start a new business within IBM. So we started optical development services and really ran multiple businesses within those umbrellas. And even at Eastman Kodak, launched camera and phone technologies and Earth Imagery Online. And I was always on the cusp of this could be a whole industry, doing the business case, getting the CEO, a new leader of that business. So I didn't realize till afterwards that I had this entrepreneurial vibe within corporate America. And really my pivot from corporate America, I'm a member of our demographic that we serve. opted out for caregiving. And I would say that, but at the same time, it was at the turn of events where they said, we're selling our division to ITT and you need to come back. I was working remotely, come back or leave. So the choices were made with the third child on the way. So I think that when I reflect back on this kind of social enterprise and entrepreneurial journey, I didn't realize until Untapped Potential was the Women-Owned Business of the Year, and we went to the SBA award ceremony. I realized, oh my God, my grandfather ran a business for 60 years across the street. We had a business in our home that my mother ran, teaching dance. So I kind of didn't realize that I was being brought up that way.
It's so interesting that you say that, because I mean, I know Eric and I have the same thing. Like on both sides of our family, there were entrepreneurs. One who sort of built, our great grandfather and then grandfather built a shoe store, and then on the other side was more in like sort of like eventually he was a designer and eventually had a business, that sold, like sewing material, yarn and sewing materials and so forth and whatever. And it's funny that you say that, because I don't think until recently I thought of our family's background in entrepreneurship, because we were so, and Eric, I think you'll agree with me, like we were so raised in this sort of mode of, oh, you're gonna, basically, the lawyer, doctor, whatever, business person, whatever. Those are your sort of three choices. So I think it's interesting how I think, there's often this history, I think, that people have, but you don't necessarily think about it because you sort of get in this mindset of, oh, I got to go to college and I got to do, there's this path that people expect of you. I don't know if anybody.
And also, I think it's partly a generational value, because when we look at like the younger generations, a lot of them want to say, I want to start something. I want to try something. I want to, bring something. And they have that much more as a value for various different reasons, right? And on this subject, I want to kind of pose a question to you guys. In a business context, what do you dream about? Like, Collette, what do you dream about for your business?
Oh my goodness. I dream big. I dream about having a nonprofit arm where we go into schools and we teach kids how to communicate. We teach people how to have healthy, safe conversations with each other. So impact is my ultimate, that's what I'm here for, is impact. And so to be able to grow that impact outside of companies and organizations, and especially with kids, the way that they're growing up right now without as much social context, without as much, practice, that is my vision for our company.
It's interesting, Collette, you use the word impact. I used it when I started my company, my last company a couple of years ago. I had this moment where I was like, okay, what am I driven by? Like, I literally remember having this sort of conversation in my head going, you can, in my mind, there's three things that you can be driven by. You can be driven by fame, you can be driven by fortune, and you can be driven by impact. And I was like, I don't care about the other two. I just want to do something that is important. And then, of course, that concept can get eaten away at to some degree by the real world and what works and what doesn't work. But ultimately, I just wanted to do something that was, and actually I had that feeling like when I was talking to people, because I was like, oh, I started consulting before I did I started my company, and I was like, what if I give away some idea that's really important and could be worth a lot of money? And I decided, you know what, I don't care about that. If I give it to somebody else and they turn it into a more successful business, I still had a role in that impact that I really want to do. And so I just kind of was like, you know what, I'm just going to put it out there. Now, I'm not espousing everybody doing that. It's probably not a great idea, but it is something that I remember having that thought process.
Yeah.
Talal, what is your answer to Elena, jumping back to Elena's question?
I mean, so for me, so we're in technology. I mean, we always dream to have your technology everywhere you go. I mean, mainly in hospital to monitor to use it in recovery. But what are we aiming to is like, and maybe sound like fishy or cocky a little bit, but I'm looking to make money so I can have the impact where I can go out and work with an organization like a nonprofit to help them fund something will make impact in the society, in your community. So that's one thing. And funny thing, we were talking the other day, and everybody's saying like, when you retire, what's your hobby? And I said like, I don't have a hobby, but I think if I have enough money, I'd like to get involved with the organization to help kind of spread or do something good in the community and the society. And that's the key. I mean, money is good, but also when we leave, we don't take it with us. We leave the legacy behind, and that's what I'm looking for: just legacy in the community, and in social work or nonprofit organization.
So I have a question for everybody that Talal, your comment brings up for me, which is, and something I've been really thinking about in the last week or two, and I forget what spurred this for me, which is, why is impact so difficult as a motivator for our society? We see individuals, but it seems to be really difficult. And maybe the thing was that I read an article or somewhere on the internet that in order to feed all of the hungry people in the world, we need something on the order of $40 billion, not trillion dollars, not $400 billion, but $40 billion a year to feed everybody. And maybe it's as high as 100 billion, but like, there are individuals who have those kinds of resources to them. And I guess my question is, why is it that we can have this ability to do good on the individual level, on our company level, but what is it about society that's keeping us from doing things that are so obviously beneficial to everybody and wouldn't even cost that much? I mean, that's astonishing to me, that $40 billion is nothing for the world.
I mean, there's some people doing something and they have an impact. But what's causing the thing is not at the corporate level to do it, is the recognition. I mean, some people, a lot of people, they want to be recognized for the work. A lot of people want to do the work without being recognized. They don't care about being on the face of the Time magazine or anything. And that's the issue. When politics start getting in and ego get in the process, nothing gets done. I mean, I'm involved in a couple of organizations, all of doctors, professionals. When we sit down and there's no ego. I'm here to help. You don't have to call me doctor. Tell me what I want to do. You want me to mop the floor? I'll mop the floor after the OR, after the surgery. I mean, this kind of people make impact. But people want to come in and say, I'm a doctor, open the door for me, don't treat me this. I mean, that's not going to go far. I think we need to separate the ego and from what are you trying to do when it comes to impact.
And Eric, when you're talking about the social kind of more global idea of why do we not do these things that are perfectly within our control as a group? And I think there is some learned helplessness there. I think there's like a reluctance to rely on others, to believe that certain things are possible. It's way easier just to say, this is the income I need, and that's going to be my measure of success, versus really the almost vulnerability that it takes to work with other people toward something that you all believe in, to get the impact.
Well, I also think I would build on what you were saying, Collette, is that how does society define success? And how do we teach us to how to define success, right? And very largely, it is, how do you show up? Do you show up in a fancy car? Do you show up in a fancy house? Do you show up with all the, all the get up that's, perceived as success, rather than have you contributed to the society's well-being? So I think there is some reframing that needs to be done there too. Candace, what do you think?
I think those things kind of go in flows, and what your comment about the way we define success made me think of the minimalists, and how some of our next generation are gaining popularity on TikTok or whatever, living minimalistically. And I think that those might be trends. And as I've read about that, there are different pockets in our history where that was in fashion versus what we view today, similar to those aspirational goals being a generational thing, whether it's to be your own businessman or to be go to college, get a degree, and work a job. Those might be trending or generational things. The way we work, we think of success like you described, and also someone that has a fancy car and is an executive and is treated like an executive is defined today as success, but it's only been a short time in our history, the hunter-gatherer years, the agricultural years, civilization, and all those, where we've separated kids from work, from parenting. And it's only a short time where, in our history of 1950s on, where we had the stay-at-home mom era, and people think of it, that's the norm. And really, if we look at all of history, women contribute in different ways and raise kids in different ways. So there's a lot to just how we perceive how things are and what are the societal views around that. And I think we're at a pivotal time again where AI and the internet are making work be different, that you can take it anywhere and do it anywhere, that you can have robots doing things for you and work 4-hour days or 4-hour weeks. I think that will change. But on the problem of kind of separating work from caregiving, telecommuting, maybe making us be able to be kind of aligned with our kids while they're doing their homework. We don't have to separate from them, things of that nature.
It's really interesting. I'm thinking of I can't think of the author of this book, but there's this book called 2041, and it was written by an author, two authors, one who is a science fiction author and one who's a AI expert from China who's written a lot of books, and I wish I could remember their names. But one of the stories they talk about is sort of getting at, Candace, what you're getting at is like, in a world where AI has changed the nature of work, how do we actually, or will we at some point come to the point where we're going to have to change the nature of what we think success is? Because, to your point of, because if things can get done very easily and very quickly, and the productivity isn't, it doesn't require as much effort from human beings, human beings will still need to do something. We still need to feel like we have a purpose. And for some of us, that purpose has been sort of, directed towards just, I need to be successful, which is sort of this weird thing that we can have lots of conversations about, whatever. But on the flip side, is like, what does it mean in a world where work has changed and a lot of the work gets done? Now, I don't know whether that's true or not, if that's the way it would come to pass, but that was kind of what the story was about, this idea of actually the currency had shifted in this story away from, sort of success and monetary gains, and more in terms of contributions, and people sort of trying to get, kind of, it was almost like a monetary system of like, you would get sort of these, I don't know, remember what they call it, like contribution or impact credits, for like, then this was the currency that people were looking to demonstrate that they could help each other. So I don't know whether that happens or not, but that's what your comment made me think of, is the nature of work will change. Is there an opportunity as that work changes for us more?
If you look at they say AI is not going to take your job, but if you don't use AI, you're going to lose your job.
That's a good way to write it.
Yeah, but the other thing is AI. Let's take ChatGPT today. I mean, you can spot ChatGPT text in anywhere today. If people are going to use AI to just take it and use it as is without using the brain or what actually that you say, it's not going to work out. So we have to step up. We have to be able to be trained to use AI in the right way, not just say, because, well, the robot did it, I can do that's it, it's done, good deal. I mean, there's certain stuff has a blueprint. Like if you go to a building, it has a blueprint. You can hire a robot to paint, to demolish wall because they follow the blueprint. But some areas, there's no there's no blueprint. I mean, you have to use your brain. You have to be adaptive. You have to use the experience in order to do things. Yes, AI will help you start, or if you're stuck somewhere, help you finish. But you have to use your brain. You have to use AI smartly to get the job done.
Yeah.
I would build on that, especially Talal in the industry where you and I are working in, right? Everything is so complex, so fragmented, so regulated that even when you want to bring out the AI, it can help in certain very specific areas. And just even joining them requires a lot of thinking through and a lot of interactions.
Yeah.
How are you seeing that, Collette? And by that, I'm referring to AI impact on what you do.
Yes. Well, it's interesting because we use technology up into the extent that it interferes with actual human to human communication. And so for us, the AI is really important for really long-term reporting and aggregating information. But when it comes to the process, we keep it as clean as possible. Like, we don't even use recordings or transcriptions for meetings. We want a conversation to be a moment in time, iterative, and something that you can learn from, not something that lasts forever. So it is interesting because we're definitely open to it. I use AI all the time, and until it interferes with actual communication and human intelligence.
Candace, I'm curious, as we're talking about AI, how is AI impacting what you do? I mean, obviously there's all these people coming back in the workforce from before AI was a thing. Is it making it easier for them to get upskilled? Like, what is the impact on your constituency there?
Well, interesting. We just had our third skill up in AI, and yes, it was yesterday, a lunch and learn, and it was focused on a returner's journey. So a returner sharing how she's using AI, how she's skilled up in AI, how she found how it fit with her personality, and how she's leveraging it. I would highlight that every AI training I've happened to be going to, Quinnipiac University or different online things, they always use the example of a job rec. And if you were to apply for this job, how would you take this resume? It's like the standard, no matter how high level you go, they make it a common thread that everybody can understand the applying for a job and getting a job. Unfortunately, to date, the job board system and the applicant tracking system and filtering by keywords and years and things of that nature is what keeps those that are caregiving from participating and getting through those filters. So we advise to use AI for your research. Maybe you haven't worked in corporate America in a while and you used to have a chief of staff role. Well, how does that at Procter & Gamble, how could you search, use the internet to search roles you might like, find common things, find matching things to things you did in the past, and write them in a way that is modern. We teach you to use it for research, and really identifying where you might have a gap and where you might choose to skill up with Untapped Potential, take a course in digital marketing to get you where you need to be, or things of that nature. So all that said, we do leverage it for different aspects, and the prompting and the writing and then the finishing things at the end, in the ever present machine for digital marketing. But I think that what we've talked about was Google, existed probably for 10 years before the average person used it. I remember going to my university to do research and using Google along with Nexus and other things. And it was there 10 years before you had a baud modem that you could access it. So we want our stay-at-home moms to be early adapters. What we said is, you are at the starting line with everyone else. Everyone's starting at square one with AI. You can be there too. So giving them confidence that they don't have to feel like it's not for them. They can think, I'm just as good as everyone transitioning to this. I can transition now.
So This has been an amazing conversation and has flown by as always, maybe even faster because there's more of us. But I don't know, Eric and Elena, we didn't really talk about this, but I think we the same way we always end, which is to go around the group and have everyone share what's one thing you'd like our audience to take away from this conversation. So why don't we start with Talal?
I mean, I would say if you're in the business and your own business, independent business, you need to be adaptable to the market and flexible to survive. I mean, this is my third startup. When you start with an idea, it's not the same year from day zero. It's always different. And the reason is there because we listen, we adapt, and we kept moving forward. And that's the key is keep moving forward, but be ready to adapt along the way.
Great. Awesome. I'm just going to go clockwise. So I'll go to, I think that's clockwise. Candace.
As far as a parting comment, I just want to highlight that this comment spurred my brain to remember this. And we were talking about making an impact and how society views work and how society views caregiving. And we started this business thinking, I value caregiving, the brain development of our next generation. Society doesn't value it in the same way. It's unpaid work. It's not valued. We're at a pivotal time where that might be changing. And also, when we talk to our candidates about their life's contribution work-wise, we look at it at the long haul. When I say our year is a little bit different than other companies' years and metrics, we're looking at your career accomplishments over the maybe 70 or 50 years of your life. And if you're, 45 and you haven't worked the last 10 years, you still have a long lifetime to contribute to your career potential. And you gave the right point in time to the next generation and our nation's caregiving.
Awesome. Eric, you want to?
Yeah. So I'm used to going last, so it's strange for me. So I think my thing is, Talal, you made this comment about ego getting in the way, essentially, of the mission driven, and that's stuck with me. And the fact that we're looking at the people who actually have enormous resources instead of trying to solve immediate problems. They're solving problems like going to space that we're going to need in 2300 or something like that, instead of things that we need to worry about now. And that's, to me, seems like it's all driven by ego, not by impact. And I really think this is an interesting way to kind of think about that problem.
I'll sort of build on all of these comments and just say that for me, this interesting question of how is the nature of work going to need to change as sort of the technology continues to change, and how do we start to recognize that purpose and impact are really so much more important. They've always been important, but there's been this sort of way of kind of going, but that doesn't matter because but I'm successful, I get more dollars in my bank account. And I'm not sure that's I don't think it's making anybody necessarily super satisfied. So how do we drive that sort of sense of impact? I'll pass it to Collette.
Okay, thank you. So the question I want people to ask themselves is, why not me? Because we all have this seed in our heart and our mind, these ideas, these things that we see that other people don't see, that we could solve, that other people can't solve. And I think more often than not, they get kind of tossed away by somebody saying to themselves, well, I can't do that. And my question is, why not? Because you don't have to know everything. You have to know your next couple of steps and be willing to put the work into it. And we need people's ideas and solutions now more than ever. So that's the question I want people to ask themselves.
Wow. Very inspirational. Thank you. Well, thank you, all of you guys, because what I'm coming out of this discussion with is the courage and commitment and values and taking risks and being adaptable to change and growing your incredible independent businesses. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. And thank you for inspiring us and hopefully our audience. So I say we did a pretty incredible first panel because of you guys. So thank you for making it a success. And here we go. Happy upcoming 4th of July to everybody who is listening to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.